Imagine pulling a single penny from your pocket and realizing it connects you directly to America in the early 1960s, a time of space races, new hopes, and quiet change. That penny might look ordinary, but if it has a small D under the date, it could be more interesting than you think. Today, we're diving into the story, value, and hidden details of the 1961 D Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of people have held, yet very few have truly understood. The 1961 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint in 1961. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. At first glance, it looks just like many other pennies from the middle of the 20th century. But coins are more than spare change. They're small metal time capsules, and this one captures a very specific moment in American history, right at the beginning of a decade that would reshape the nation. To understand this coin, we need to step back to the early 1960s. The United States was entering a new era. John F. Kennedy had just become president. The space race with the Soviet Union was accelerating. Televisions were becoming common in homes, suburbs were expanding, and American life felt full of possibility. Coins were still made mostly of metal with real intrinsic value, and everyday change passed through millions of hands every day, from diners to gas stations to corner stores. The Lincoln penny itself had already been around for more than 50 years by 1961. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person instead of a symbolic figure like Liberty. By the time 1961 arrived, Lincoln's portrait had become one of the most recognizable images in American money, and the reverse design featured the Lincoln Memorial, which had been introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. In 1961, the Denver Mint struck a massive number of pennies. Over 1.7 billion 1961 D cents were produced, making it one of the highest mintage pennies of the era. That huge number means most of these coins aren't rare in circulated condition. But rarity in coin collecting doesn't always mean low mintage. Sometimes it means condition, errors, or unique varieties that slip through quality control. And that's where the 1961 D penny becomes far more interesting. Let's talk about the coin itself. The 1961 D penny is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This gives it that warm, reddish-brown color when new. It weighs about 3.11 grams and has a smooth edge. On the front, or obverse, is the right-facing bust of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. You'll see the word Liberty to the left, the date 1961 to the right, and the small D mint mark just below the date, showing it was made in Denver. On the reverse, or back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, with the words United States of America across the top, 1 cent across the bottom, and EPLURIBUSUNUM above the memorial. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, which makes this one of the few U.S. coins where the same person appears on both sides. Now, here's where things start getting exciting. Most 1961 D pennies you'll find in pocket change are worth just 1 cent, maybe 2 or 3 cents if they're in nice condition. But some examples, especially those in near-perfect shape or with unusual errors, can be worth far more. And in rare cases, collectors have paid hundreds or even thousands of dollars for exceptional pieces. One of the key factors in value is condition. Coin collectors grade coins on a scale, and the highest levels are called mint state, meaning the coin was never circulated and shows no wear. Even among mint state coins, there are levels of quality, from average uncirculated to nearly flawless. A 1961 D penny in average circulated condition might be worth just a few cents. But in high mint state, especially with full original red color, values rise sharply. For example, A 1961 D penny graded MS67 red, which means it has almost perfect surfaces and strong original color, has sold at auction for several $100s. In rare cases, coins graded even higher have reached prices approaching or exceeding $1,000. That's a shocking jump for a coin that once bought almost nothing and still often sits unnoticed in jars and drawers across America. Even more exciting are error coins. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the minting process, such as a misaligned strike, a doubled image, or a missing design element. These mistakes are usually caught and destroyed, but a few slip through and reach the public. Those are the coins collectors dream about. One known error type for 1961 D pennies is the doubled die, where parts of the design appear doubled because the die used to strike the coin was misaligned during production. On some examples, you can see doubling on the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." These doubled images are not damage or wear, but part of the original strike, and they can dramatically increase a coin's value. Another type of error involves off-center strikes, where the design isn't properly centered on the blank coin. Depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, these can sell for tens, hundreds, or even more. There are also clipped planchets, where part of the metal blank is missing, creating a curved or straight edge. Each of these errors tells a story about a moment when the minting process didn't go as planned. So why does a coin with over 1.7 billion examples still matter to collectors? The answer lies in survival and condition. While many were made, most were heavily circulated and worn down over time. Finding one in pristine condition today is surprisingly difficult. Add an error or unusual feature, and suddenly that common penny becomes a rare and desirable collectible. Let's look at some real-world value examples. In recent years, a 1961 D penny graded MS67 red has sold at major coin auctions for between $300 and $600, depending on eye appeal and market demand. A few top-tier examples in MS68 red condition have reached prices well over $1,000. Error coins vary widely. A strong doubled die example might sell for $50 to several $100s. A dramatic off-center strike could bring similar or even higher prices, especially if the date and mint mark are still visible. These prices might sound unbelievable for a penny, but that's the reality of high-grade and error coin collecting. It's not about face value. It's about rarity, condition, and story. And every one of these valuable examples started out exactly the same way, as a simple piece of change. Now let's talk about how to identify a real 1961 D penny and avoid fakes or altered coins. First, check the date and mint mark. The date should read 1961, and there should be a small D just below it. If there's no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia instead. While the Philadelphia version is also collectible, the Denver mint mark is essential if you're specifically searching for the 1961 D variety. Next, check the weight. A genuine copper penny from 1961 should weigh about 3.11 grams. A significant difference could indicate damage, wear, or in rare cases, a counterfeit or altered coin. Also examine the surface. Genuine coins will show natural wear patterns and metal flow lines under magnification, while altered coins may show tool marks, scratches, or unusual texture. If you think you've found an error coin, be cautious. Many things that look like errors are actually postmint damage, such as dents, scratches, or heat damage. True mint errors usually show smooth, rounded edges where metal flowed incorrectly, rather than sharp cuts or gouges. When in doubt, professional coin dealers or third-party grading services can authenticate and grade your coin. Now for some fun facts. Did you know that the Lincoln Memorial reverse design on pennies from 1959 to 2008 is the only U.S. coin design to feature the same person on both sides? Lincoln appears on the front as a portrait and on the back as a tiny statue inside the memorial. Many people have carried these coins their entire lives without ever noticing that detail. Another interesting fact is that 1961 was one of the last years before major changes to U.S. coinage metal content. In 1982, pennies began shifting from mostly copper to mostly zinc, making older copper cents like the 1961D more desirable to collectors and even metal investors. Some people even save precious 1,982 pennies just for their copper value, which is often higher than face value, though melting them down is illegal in the United States. It's also fascinating to think about what a penny meant in 1961. Back then, a penny could still buy small items, and a few coins could make a real difference in daily life. Today, pennies are often ignored or thrown into jars, yet some of them quietly hold far more value than anyone expects. Collectors love the 1961D penny for several reasons. First, it's part of the classic Lincoln Memorial series, one of the most widely collected and beloved U.S. coin designs. Second, it's affordable and accessible. Most examples can be found for very little money, making it easy for beginners to start collecting. At the same time, high-grade and error examples offer serious challenges and rewards for advanced collectors. There's also something special about collecting coins from a specific year. A 1961 penny is more than metal. It's a piece of history from a time when America was standing at the edge of major change. When you hold it, you're holding something that passed through hands during the Cold War, the early space race, and the dawn of a new cultural era. That connection to the past is what draws many people into coin collecting in the first place. Another reason collectors enjoy this coin is the thrill of the hunt. Since most 1961D pennies are common, finding a valuable one feels like discovering a hidden treasure in plain sight. It might be sitting in an old coffee can, a childhood piggy bank, or a forgotten roll of coins in a drawer. The idea that something so small and ordinary could be quietly valuable keeps people checking their change and searching through old collections. And sometimes, those searches pay off. There are real stories of collectors and everyday people finding high-grade or error pennies worth hundreds of dollars in old rolls or inherited collections. While those finds are rare, they're not impossible. Every valuable coin started out as an ordinary one, and that possibility keeps the excitement alive. So what should you do if you think you have a 1961D penny worth more than face value? Start by examining it carefully under good light and, if possible, with a magnifying glass. Look for sharp details, strong original color, and anything unusual in the lettering or design. Compare it to known examples online or in coin guides. If it looks especially clean or shows a possible error, consider having it evaluated by a professional coin dealer or sending it to a trusted grading service. Even if it turns out to be common, you've still learned something valuable. You've taken a closer look at history, craftsmanship, and the stories hidden in everyday objects. And that curiosity is exactly what coin collecting is all about. The 1961D Lincoln penny may not be the rarest or most expensive coin in American history, but it represents something powerful. It shows how even the smallest, most overlooked objects can carry meaning, value, and stories worth telling. It reminds us that history doesn't only live in museums or textbooks. Sometimes it sits quietly in our pockets, waiting to be noticed. So the next time you see a penny on the ground or in your change, don't rush past it. Pick it up, turn it over, check the date. Look for that tiny mint mark. Because one ordinary-looking coin could connect you to a different time, a different America, and maybe even a hidden piece of value you never expected. And who knows? The next 1961D penny you find might just be more than spare change. It could be a small copper link to history, a collector's prize, or the beginning of a new hobby that turns everyday objects into fascinating stories. Most people have held this coin in their hand without ever realizing it. A small brown penny, quietly sitting in change jars, desk drawers, and old wallets. But what if I told you that some 1962 D Lincoln pennies are worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars, and that a few rare examples have shocked collectors at auction? Today, we're uncovering the real story behind one of the most overlooked coins in American history. This is the 1962 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny. It was made in Denver, carries the famous face of Abraham Lincoln, and looks almost identical to millions of other pennies from the early 1960s. But beneath its ordinary appearance lies a fascinating story of American history, hidden errors, and surprising value. Whether you're a collector, someone who inherited old coins, or just curious about what might be hiding in your pocket change, this coin deserves a closer look. The year 1962 was a time of major change in the United States. The country was deep in the Cold War, space exploration was accelerating, and Americans were experiencing both anxiety and optimism about the future. The Lincoln penny had already been part of everyday life for over 50 years, having first appeared in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. By 1962, it was one of the most familiar objects in American commerce. The Denver Mint struck the 1962 D penny as part of the regular circulation coinage, meaning it was intended to be used in everyday transactions. At that time, pennies were still made mostly of copper, unlike modern cents, which are primarily zinc. People used these coins to buy candy, newspapers, and coffee, never imagining that decades later, some of them would become collectible treasures. More than 3.3 billion Lincoln cents were minted in 1962 across all mints, with the Denver Mint producing a massive portion of that total. That might sound like a lot, and it is. But here's where things get interesting. Even when a coin is common, condition and rarity of specific varieties can dramatically change its value. That's exactly what happened with the 1962 D penny. Let's take a closer look at what makes this coin special. The 1962 D Lincoln penny is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. It weighs 3.11 grams and measures just under 20 millimeters in diameter. If you've ever held a Pennies 1,982 penny, you felt that heavier copper weight compared to today's lighter cents. On the front of the coin, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces to the right, with the word Liberty to the left and the date to the right. Just beneath the date, you'll find a small letter D, showing that the coin was minted in Denver. On the back, the design features two wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, with EPLURIBUSUNUM across the top. This is why collectors call it a wheat penny, even though the design ended in 1958. But interestingly, the 1962 penny actually features the Lincoln Memorial reverse, not wheat ears, since the design changed in 1959. Instead of wheat stalks, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial Building, with a tiny statue of Lincoln inside. That Lincoln Memorial design was new at the time, and many people didn't realize that the tiny figure inside the building was actually Lincoln himself, sitting in his chair. It's one of the smallest and most detailed elements ever put on a circulating U.S. coin. Now, you might be thinking, if billions of these were made, how could any of them be valuable? The answer lies in condition, rarity within condition, and minting errors. Most 1962 D pennies that circulated heavily are worth only a few cents above face value, but those that were carefully preserved, never spent, and kept in near-perfect condition can be worth much more. Coins are graded on a scale that measures wear, sharpness, and overall appearance. A penny that looks dull, scratched, or worn down is common, but a penny with sharp details, original shine, and no visible damage becomes much rarer. For the 1962 D penny, examples in top condition are surprisingly difficult to find. Collectors especially prize coins graded in mint state 67 red or higher. These coins still have their original bright copper color, no major marks, and razor-sharp details. Only a small number of 1962 D pennies survive in this condition, and that's where prices start climbing. Even more exciting are error coins. Errors happen during the minting process, and when they slip into circulation, they can become extremely valuable. Some known errors for the 1962 D penny include doubled dies, off-center strikes, and clipped planchets. A doubled die occurs when the coin design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on the letters or numbers. On some 1962 D pennies, collectors have spotted doubling in the date or the word Liberty. These errors can be subtle, but when confirmed, they can significantly increase the coin's value. Off-center strikes happen when the coin blank isn't properly aligned in the press, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. Depending on how dramatic the error is, these coins can be worth anywhere from tens to hundreds of dollars. Clipped planchets, where part of the coin is missing due to a manufacturing mistake, also attract collector attention. So, how valuable can a 1962 D Lincoln penny really be? In average circulated condition, most examples are worth just 2 to 5 cents. In uncirculated condition, they can sell for $1 to $3. But in high-grade mint condition, the story changes completely. Some top-grade 1962 D pennies have sold for several $100s at auction. A coin graded MS67 red has been known to sell in the range of $300 to $600, depending on demand and eye appeal. Even more impressive, exceptional examples graded MS68 red, which are extremely rare, have reached prices over $1,000 in major auctions. Error coins can go even higher. A strong double-die 1962 D penny in excellent condition can bring several $100s, sometimes more if the doubling is dramatic and well documented. These prices might not make someone rich overnight, but they're shocking when you consider the coin originally cost just 1 cent. So how can you tell if you have a real and potentially valuable 1962 D penny? First, look at the date and mint mark. The coin should say 1962, and there should be a small D under the date, just below Lincoln's shoulder. No mint mark would mean it was made in Philadelphia, which is a different variety. Next, check the weight. A genuine 1962 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter, it could be damaged, altered, or fake. Then examine the color. Original copper pennies have a warm reddish-brown tone. If the coin looks overly shiny or plated, it may have been altered. Use a magnifying glass or phone camera to inspect the lettering and numbers. Look for doubling, especially on the date and the word Liberty. Check for odd shapes, missing parts, or unusual marks that could indicate a minting error. Also examine the edges. They should be smooth and even, with no seams or signs of casting. If you think you've found something special, the best step is to have the coin examined by a professional coin dealer or a third-party grading service. These experts can confirm authenticity, identify errors, and assign a grade, which plays a major role in determining value. One fun and surprising fact about the 1962 D penny is that it belongs to the last full decade of copper pennies before rising metal prices forced the U.S. Mint to change the composition in 1982. That means every 1962 penny contains almost 3 cents worth of copper by today's metal prices, even before considering collector value. Another interesting detail is that the Denver Mint in the early 1960s was known for strong strikes and high-quality production. That's part of the reason some 1962 D pennies survive in such beautiful condition compared to earlier decades, even though top-grade examples are still rare. There's also something nostalgic about this coin. Many people who grew up in the 1960s remember carrying copper pennies in their pockets, saving them in piggy banks, or spending them at corner stores. For collectors, the 1962 D penny isn't just a piece of metal. It's a small piece of American memory. Collectors love this coin today because it represents a perfect balance between affordability and challenge. Most people can find one easily, making it a great entry point into coin collecting. But finding one in exceptional condition or with a genuine mint error becomes a rewarding hunt that keeps collectors searching through rolls, jars, and collections. It's also part of the larger Lincoln cent story, one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. Holding a 1962 D penny means holding a link between the early 20th century origins of the Lincoln cent and the modern pennies we use today. It connects generations through a simple, everyday object. What makes this coin especially exciting is that valuable examples are still being discovered. People continue to search through old coin rolls, inherited collections, and forgotten jars of change, and every year, new high-grade pieces and rare errors surface. That means the story of the 1962 D penny is still being written. So the next time you see a brown penny dated 1962 with a small D under the date, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the details. Feel its weight, because what seems like ordinary pocket change might actually be a hidden piece of history worth far more than 1 cent. The 1962 D Lincoln penny reminds us that treasure doesn't always sparkle. Sometimes it looks exactly like everything else, waiting patiently for someone curious enough to notice. And who knows, the next one you pick up might not just tell a story from America's past. It might tell a story about your future. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that most people pass by every day, without realizing it could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Picture a penny so ordinary-looking that it might be sitting in your own pocket, yet so rare that collectors search the country just to find one. Today, we're talking about the 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that carries a quiet story of history, rarity, and value. The 1967 Lincoln penny, at first glance, might look like any other copper coin you see in circulation. It features Abraham Lincoln on the front, a familiar face that has graced U.S. pennies since 1909. On the back, the iconic wheat stalks of the Lincoln wheat penny are gone, replaced by the Union shield, symbolizing unity and strength. What makes the 1967 penny we're exploring truly special is the absence of a mint mark. That small, missing letter tells a bigger story than you might think. To understand why, we have to go back to the 1960s. The United States was in the midst of significant change. Coins were being scrutinized, metal shortages were affecting production, and the U.S. Mint was experimenting with different metals and designs. The year 1967 fell within a period when pennies were struck primarily from a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This was after the temporary switch to steel in 1943 and before the later changes in the 1980s. Normally, pennies are stamped with a mint mark, a small letter near the date indicating where they were made. A D represents Denver, an S represents San Francisco, and no letter typically meant Philadelphia. However, in 1967, the situation was slightly different. While most pennies came from Denver, some Philadelphia pennies were struck without the usual identifying marks due to changes in production and record keeping. This makes the 1967 no mint mark penny a fascinating anomaly. Beyond its origin, the coin's physical features are also interesting. It is made mostly of copper, giving it that familiar reddish tone that collectors love. The obverse displays Lincoln's portrait in sharp relief, capturing every detail from his beard to the folds of his coat. On the reverse, the Lincoln memorial design had been replaced by the shield, a design introduced just a few years prior in 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday. Some coins from this year also display minor errors, such as slight doubling of the date or uneven strikes, which can make them even more valuable to collectors. So why is this particular penny rare? It's all about numbers and attention to detail. In 1967, the Philadelphia Mint produced coins in vast quantities, yet very few no-mint mark pennies were circulated. Over the decades, many of these coins were lost, spent, or damaged, leaving only a small number in collectible condition. Rarity is not just about how many were made, but how many survived in good condition. And for the 1967 no-mint mark penny, that number is surprisingly low. Collectors and auction houses have taken notice. A well-preserved 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny can fetch anywhere from a few $100s to over $1,000, depending on its condition. For example, coins graded M/65, meaning mint state with strong luster and no visible wear, have sold in auctions for remarkable sums, sometimes reaching the four-figure range. Even coins with minor imperfections can bring impressive offers from dedicated collectors. These values are a testament to the coin's rarity and the excitement it generates in the numismatic community. Identifying a genuine 1967 no-mint mark penny is crucial. Look closely at the area just below the date. A true Philadelphia strike will have a smooth, clean field with no letter indicating a mint. The details of Lincoln's profile should be sharp and clear. Weight and color also help. Authentic pennies weigh just over 3 grams and carry that warm copper hue. Be cautious of fakes or altered coins, especially ones where a mint mark has been removed. Consulting a trusted grading service or experienced collector is always wise before making a purchase or sale. There are also some fun details that make this coin intriguing. Unlike other pennies, the 1967 no-mint mark penny is part of a transition period in U.S. coinage, bridging traditional copper designs and modern materials. Collectors often marvel at the tiny variations between coins struck on different presses. Some coins may show slightly different shades of copper or subtle differences in the shield design on the back. These small quirks, invisible to most people, make hunting for these pennies almost like a treasure hunt. Collectors love this coin today not just for its potential financial value, but for its connection to history. Holding a 1967 no-mint mark penny is like holding a piece of 1960s America. It's a tangible link to a time of change, from the streets where pennies passed from hand to hand, to the mint where each coin was struck with precision. For coin enthusiasts, this penny is more than metal. It is a story, a challenge, and a collectible that carries a sense of pride and discovery. Some collectors even share anecdotes of finding these pennies in rolled coins at banks, in old collections handed down from parents or grandparents, or tucked away in jars of spare change. The thrill comes not only from the possibility of financial gain, but from uncovering something rare, a piece of history that most people overlook. Every 1967 no-mint mark penny has the potential to be a centerpiece in a collection, sparking conversations and inspiring fascination. The story of the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny also highlights how something ordinary can become extraordinary. At first glance, it is just a 1-cent coin, yet its rarity, its historical context, and the excitement it creates among collectors elevate it to a status far beyond its face value. This is the magic of coin collecting, the combination of history, art, and scarcity, all embodied in a small, familiar object. Imagine the next time you reach for a penny that you might be holding a hidden treasure. The 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that even in the everyday, there is potential for discovery. It encourages curiosity, careful observation, and a respect for the history embedded in the objects we often take for granted. Every coin has a story, but few carry the quiet allure and collectible significance of this particular penny. In the end, the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is more than a coin. It's a reminder that history can be found in the smallest places, and that sometimes the things we overlook the most hold the greatest surprises. Whether you are a seasoned collector or someone who simply enjoys the thrill of discovery, this coin invites you to look closer, to ask questions, and to imagine the stories behind the metal in your hand. There is a world of rare coins waiting to be found, And the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny stands as a shining example of how even the simplest objects can carry extraordinary value. So the next time you handle a penny, consider this. Could it be an ordinary coin, or could it be one of the rare treasures that collectors dream about? The 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny continues to captivate, intrigue, and inspire. Its story is far from over, and the hunt for these rare pennies carries on, one discovery at a time. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that looks ordinary at first glance, yet could secretly be a hidden treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. A coin that tells a story not just of money, but of history, craftsmanship, and rare mistakes that collectors hunt for decades. Today, we are diving into one of the most intriguing pieces of American coinage, the 1968 S-Mint mark Lincoln penny. This seemingly simple copper penny carries a legacy that is both fascinating and surprisingly complex. The 1968 S Lincoln penny was minted in San Francisco, indicated by the small S stamped just below the date. At face value, it was everyday currency, used to buy candy, soda, or bus fare. But for coin collectors, these pennies hold a story that reaches far beyond their 1-cent value. To understand why this penny is special, we need to go back to 1968, a year of enormous social and political change in the United States. The country was in the midst of the Vietnam War, civil rights movements were gaining momentum, and the space race was capturing the nation's imagination. Amidst this backdrop, the United States Mint continued its annual production of Lincoln pennies, a tradition that began in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. The 1968 Lincoln penny carries forward the design introduced in 1959, marking the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The obverse side of the coin features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, his face detailed and serious, looking toward the right. This design, created by Victor David Brenner, had become iconic, representing not just Lincoln himself, but the ideals of unity and perseverance he stood for. On the reverse, we see the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to replace the wheat ears motif used from 1909 to 1958. Each element of this coin is carefully crafted, from the lettering to the subtle lines in Lincoln's hair, making it a small piece of art as well as currency. But what makes the 1968 S Lincoln penny particularly intriguing to collectors isn't just its design or the historical context. It's the subtle details and the variations that occurred during its minting that make some examples highly sought after. The coin is primarily composed of a copper core with a thin layer of copper-nickel cladding, a composition standard for pennies of this era. This gives it a reddish-brown color, though over time, many of these coins develop a darker patina that can enhance their appeal. One of the most talked about aspects among collectors is the presence of minting errors. While the 1968 S Lincoln penny does not have as many famous errors as some other years, there are still notable varieties to watch for. Double die errors, where the date or lettering appears slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the striking process, can dramatically increase the coin's value. Similarly, off-center strikes or weak impressions, though rare, attract collectors who are hunting for coins that are not quite like the ones that went into circulation. The rarity and value of the 1968 S Lincoln penny often come down to condition. Coins that remain in uncirculated or mint state, retaining their original luster and sharp details, are the ones that command attention at auctions. For example, an uncirculated 1968 S Lincoln penny graded MS65 or higher can sell for several $100s among dedicated collectors. Even coins with minor errors or distinctive toning have been known to fetch prices that far exceed their face value. It's a reminder that what may appear to be a simple penny in your pocket could be a rare find waiting to be discovered. To help illustrate this, consider a few real-life auction examples. In recent years, Coins graded MS66 by professional grading services have sold for anywhere from $250 to $600. Even more dramatic are coins with verified double die errors, which have occasionally crossed the $1,000 mark, proving that subtle variations can create enormous value. These sales highlight the importance of condition, provenance, and even tiny minting quirks that can transform an ordinary penny into a collector's prize. For anyone curious about identifying a genuine 1968 Lincoln penny, attention to detail is key. The S mint mark is crucial, and its size and placement should be consistent with verified examples. The color and weight of the coin should match standard specifications, which for this year are approximately 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. Comparing your coin to high-resolution images from professional grading companies can reveal subtle differences that indicate whether it's authentic or a reproduction. Counterfeit coins do exist, but with careful observation and reference to trusted resources, collectors can confidently verify their finds. Beyond its collector value, the 1968 Lincoln penny also carries some fun and surprising details. For instance, it was minted during a period when the United States Mint experimented with different die polishing techniques, which can sometimes create a mirror-like finish known as a proof-like appearance. Some coins from San Francisco that year also display a slightly higher relief in Lincoln's portrait, which can be a point of interest for numismatists. These small differences may seem trivial to the untrained eye, but they can be the difference between a common coin and a collectible gem. Collectors are drawn to this penny not only for its potential monetary value, but also for the story it tells. Each 1968 Lincoln penny is a snapshot of American history, a small artifact from a time of change, innovation, and social progress. The coin embodies a continuity that connects generations, from those who spent pennies on small, everyday purchases to modern collectors who see them as treasures worth carefully preserving. The tactile experience of holding a coin minted more than 50 years ago adds a tangible connection to the past, a reason why so many enthusiasts pursue these pennies with such dedication. Even today, the 1968 Lincoln penny holds a special place in the hearts of collectors. Its modest face value belies the excitement it can generate among numismatists and history enthusiasts alike. Whether hunting through rolls of old pennies, examining coins under a magnifying glass, or bidding at auctions, collectors find joy in the hunt and satisfaction in discovery. The 1968 Lincoln penny is more than metal and mint marks. It is a bridge to history, a testament to design, and a reminder that even the smallest objects can carry extraordinary stories. So the next time you stumble upon a worn Lincoln penny, take a moment to inspect it. Check the mint mark, examine the details of Lincoln's face and the Lincoln Memorial, and imagine the hands it has passed through over the decades. That ordinary-looking coin could be hiding something rare, a small piece of American history waiting to reveal its secrets. Who knows what surprises may be tucked away in your pocket or in a jar of loose change? The 1968 Lincoln penny reminds us that sometimes, even the most common items can hold incredible value, both historically and financially, for those willing to look closely. The story of this penny is far from over. With each coin that surfaces, collectors continue to uncover new varieties, subtle errors, and fascinating histories. Every 1968 Lincoln penny has the potential to connect someone today with the past in a very real way, offering not just a glimpse of history, but a chance to own a piece of it. And perhaps the most exciting part is that the next hidden treasure could be sitting quietly, unnoticed, right in your own coin collection. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that millions of people pass by every day, barely noticing. Now imagine that this simple penny could be worth thousands of dollars, hidden in plain sight in your pocket, your drawer, or your old coin collection. That is exactly the story of the 1971 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, a coin that has quietly captured the attention of collectors and treasure hunters alike. Its rarity is subtle, almost sneaky, but for those who know how to spot it, the reward can be astonishing. The 1971 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running series of 1-cent coins that feature the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of his birth. While the design has changed slightly over the years, the 1971 edition remains one of the most intriguing for collectors, not because of flashy artwork or exotic metal, but because of its unique production circumstances and subtle variations that make it stand out from the billions of pennies struck in that year. In 1971, the United States was deep in a period of economic change. Inflation was on the rise, and coin production was focused on efficiency. The Lincoln penny that year was struck primarily in Philadelphia and Denver, with the Philadelphia coins traditionally not carrying a mint mark. Yet, it's the Philadelphia issues without a mint mark that sometimes surprise collectors, because some were produced under unusual conditions that led to certain pennies being rarer than others. Understanding the story behind this coin begins with appreciating the simplicity of its design and the subtlety of its production. The coin features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design by Victor David Brenner that has remained iconic for more than a century. On the reverse, you find the Lincoln Memorial, which was introduced in 1959 to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday. The metal composition of the 1971 penny is mostly copper, with 95% copper and 5% zinc. This composition gives the coin a warm, reddish-brown hue, though over time many pennies darken or develop a greenish patina due to oxidation. While the design might seem ordinary, there are a few subtle features that make the 1971 no-mint mark penny special. One of the unique features collectors pay attention to is the die variation. Because of the high volume of pennies produced that year, some coins were struck with slightly misaligned dies or with minor imperfections that today make them far more valuable than their face value. Small doubling of letters, faint lines, or unusually sharp features on Lincoln's profile are just a few examples of the details collectors look for. These tiny characteristics can turn a common penny into a sought-after collector's item, sometimes worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars in pristine condition. The rarity of the 1971 no-mint mark penny is subtle but significant. While millions of pennies were struck in Philadelphia that year, the number of coins in exceptional condition, with clear details and no wear, is much smaller. Coins with minor errors, such as doubled dies or off-center strikes, are even rarer. Collectors value these variations because they are the direct result of the coin-making process and cannot be easily reproduced. This makes the 1971 no-mint mark penny a hidden gem in the world of coin collecting, often overlooked by casual collectors, but prized by those who know what to look for. Real auction examples highlight the potential value of this coin. In recent years, high-grade 1971 no-mint mark pennies have sold for hundreds of dollars at auction, with particularly sharp examples or those with minor die errors fetching even more. For instance, a near-perfect uncirculated coin sold at a major numismatic auction for over $600. Other examples with subtle doubling or other production anomalies have sold for over $1,000, demonstrating how much collectors are willing to pay for these hidden treasures. These prices may seem extraordinary for a coin that most people consider just a penny, but in the world of numismatics, condition, rarity, and historical significance are everything. Knowing how to identify a real 1971 no-mint mark penny is critical for anyone hoping to add one to their collection. First, examine the coin's details closely. Look for crisp lines on Lincoln's face, hair, and beard. Check the lettering on both the obverse and reverse. Genuine coins from 1971 have sharp, consistent fonts, while counterfeits often show irregularities or fuzziness. The weight and composition can also provide clues. Authentic 1971 pennies are 95% copper and have a distinct color and feel. Using a magnifying glass or a coin loop, collectors can spot subtle variations that indicate whether a coin is truly uncirculated, a minor die error, or a counterfeit. There are also some surprising details about this penny that many people overlook. For instance, while most pennies are handled countless times, those that remain in mint condition for decades often end up in collections, envelopes, or even old jars in attics. Some of these coins were part of special distribution sets, intended for collectors, which makes them rarer than ordinary circulation coins. Another fun fact is that small variations in the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse can indicate which Philadelphia die was used, adding yet another layer of intrigue for die collectors who specialize in tracing the subtle history of coin production. Collectors today are drawn to the 1971 no-mint mark penny for many reasons. Beyond the potential financial value, there is a story to hold in your hand. This coin represents a moment in American history, a piece of craftsmanship from a specific mint at a specific time. Owning one connects you to over a century of Lincoln pennies, to the designers, the mint workers, and the millions of Americans who have used them in everyday life. There is a thrill in holding a coin that may have quietly survived decades in perfect condition, knowing it is far rarer than it first appears. The 1971 no-mint mark penny also appeals because it is approachable. Unlike gold or platinum coins that can cost thousands to acquire, a careful search through change or old collections might reveal one of these hidden treasures. For collectors, part of the excitement is the hunt itself. Every jar of old coins, every dusty drawer, or every envelope of change is an opportunity to discover something remarkable. And when a true gem is found, its value, both historical and financial, can be life-changing. So the next time you pick up a simple Lincoln penny, take a moment to look closely. It could be more than just a coin. Among the billions minted, some are hiding subtle features, minor errors, or perfect preservation that make them rare and valuable. The 1971 no-mint mark penny is a reminder that even the most ordinary objects can carry extraordinary stories. It encourages curiosity, careful observation, and the thrill of discovery. Who knows? The coin in your pocket could be the very one that collectors have been searching for decades. Keep looking, and you might just find a piece of history that quietly holds the power to surprise, inspire, and perhaps even reward you in ways you never expected. In the world of rare coins, sometimes the smallest details make the biggest difference. And in that sense, the 1971 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is more than just a coin. It's a tiny, powerful time capsule waiting for the right person to uncover its secrets. If you think a penny is just a penny, think again. History, rarity, and value can hide in the most ordinary places, and sometimes the extraordinary is right at your fingertips. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that millions of Americans have used, passed around in pockets, jars, and drawers. Yet only a select few hold a special story. A story that can make a simple penny worth far more than its face value. Today, we're diving into one of those intriguing coins, the 1978 Lincoln penny. It might look ordinary at first glance, but for collectors, it has secrets that can turn a mundane coin into a prized treasure. The 1978 Lincoln penny is part of a long-standing tradition in American coinage. Featuring Abraham Lincoln on the front, or obverse, it continues a design that has been in circulation since 1909, marking the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The D mint mark indicates that this particular penny was minted in Denver, one of the United States' primary coin-producing facilities. While the Lincoln penny is a familiar sight to almost everyone, the 1978 version has subtle qualities that make it noteworthy in the world of coin collectors. In 1978, the United States was in a period of economic transition. Inflation was high, and the penny, though small in value, remained a symbol of everyday commerce. The Lincoln cent was made from 95% copper and 5% zinc, a composition that had been standard since 1962. Each coin was about 19 millimeters in diameter and weighed just over 3 grams, small but dense, carrying with it more than just monetary value, a piece of American history. The reverse design of the penny, still featuring the Lincoln Memorial at the time, symbolized both unity and remembrance. Every detail, from the lines of Lincoln's portrait to the engraved words "E pluribus unum," carries intentional meaning that reflects the era in which it was minted. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1978 D penny is its subtle but important variations. Collectors often look for minor differences in die strikes, off-center impressions, or small doubling in the letters, all of which can add a surprising amount of value. While the 1978 D is not typically classified among the rarest coins in American history, certain specimens, especially those in pristine, uncirculated condition, can command higher prices. Coins that were saved directly from the mint, known as mint state coins, are especially sought after. Even small imperfections, or what collectors call mint errors, can turn an ordinary coin into a collector's gem. For example, a penny with a doubled die, where the image appears slightly doubled, or one with unusual planchet variations, can draw considerable attention in auction houses. But why does this penny hold value beyond nostalgia? The answer lies in rarity, condition, and collector demand. While millions of 1978 D pennies were produced, very few have survived in mint condition. Over decades, most pennies are worn down, scratched, or lost entirely. That scarcity, combined with the coin's historical significance and the enduring popularity of Lincoln pennies, makes the 1978 D a coin worth watching. A well-preserved specimen can fetch anywhere from a few dollars to hundreds, depending on its condition and any unique characteristics. The market for such coins is driven by both seasoned collectors and new enthusiasts, all eager to find a piece of history that remains tangible, small, and accessible. Real-world examples illustrate this perfectly. In recent years, 1978 D pennies graded M-65, a high uncirculated condition, have sold at auctions for upwards of $50 or more. Coins with minor minting errors, like doubled dies or striking anomalies, have reached even higher prices. Even coins in circulated condition can hold modest but meaningful value if they exhibit unusual characteristics or are part of a complete set from that era. These examples show that the 1978 D Lincoln penny is more than just pocket change. It's a collectible that can appreciate over time. Identifying a genuine 1978 D penny is relatively straightforward, but requires attention to detail. First, the coin should be examined for the Denver D mint mark, located just below the date on the obverse side. The copper color should be consistent with its composition, and the Lincoln Memorial design on the reverse should be sharp and detailed. Buyers should watch out for obvious fakes or altered coins, such as those with artificially added mint marks. A magnifying glass can reveal subtle features, such as die lines or surface textures, that help authenticate a coin. For serious collectors, professional grading services provide an added layer of certainty, assigning a grade that reflects the coin's condition and any notable traits. There are also fun and surprising details about this penny that make it intriguing beyond monetary value. For instance, the Lincoln penny is the only U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure, which gives it an enduring cultural appeal. Many people don't realize that the Lincoln Memorial design on the reverse was only introduced in 1959, replacing the wheat ears that had been on the back since 1909. So a 1978 D penny not only represents the era in which it was minted, but also stands as a continuation of over a century of evolving design. Coin enthusiasts often enjoy imagining the hands that held these pennies over the years, from store clerks to school children, making the coin a tangible link to everyday American life. Collectors love the 1978 D Lincoln penny because it embodies both accessibility and challenge. Unlike coins that are so rare they are nearly impossible to find, this penny strikes a balance. It is common enough to be found, yet specific enough that discovering a high-grade specimen or a unique variation can feel like striking gold. It offers both the satisfaction of collecting and the thrill of potential discovery. Owning a coin like this connects collectors to history, craftsmanship, and the subtle art of numismatics, where even a small copper disc can tell a rich story. The story of the 1978 D. Lincoln penny reminds us that value isn't always about the numbers stamped on a coin. It's about history, condition, rarity, and the human connection to the past. The next time you glance at a penny on the sidewalk or in your change, consider this. One of those small, unassuming coins could hold a story that spans decades, linking you to collectors, historians, and everyday Americans who came before you. A 1978 D. Lincoln penny may look ordinary, but in the right hands, it can become extraordinary, a tiny piece of history waiting to be discovered. So, if you happen to find a 1978 D penny tucked away in a drawer or a jar, take a closer look. Examine the details, check the mint mark, and think about the journey this small coin has taken. You might just be holding more than a penny. You could be holding a piece of history, a collector's prize, or a story that few others will ever know. And who knows? That tiny coin might surprise you, revealing secrets and value that are only visible to those willing to look closely. Keep your eyes open, because sometimes the most ordinary objects hide the most extraordinary stories. Imagine holding a piece of history in the palm of your hand, a coin so ordinary yet so special that collectors around the world search tirelessly for it. The 1979 D. Lincoln penny is one of those hidden treasures that can turn a simple pocket change into a prized collectible. Most people see it as just another penny, but there is a story behind every detail, a history embedded in its copper and zinc, and a subtle uniqueness that makes it stand out. Today, we're going to explore everything about the 1979 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, its history, its value, and why it continues to captivate coin collectors even decades after it left the U.S. Mint. The 1979 D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The D on the coin signifies that it was minted in Denver, one of the two primary U.S. mint locations producing pennies in that year, the other being Philadelphia, which carries no mint mark. At first glance, it might seem like an ordinary coin, but for collectors, the year 1979 marks a significant chapter in the evolution of the Lincoln penny, offering subtle variations and, occasionally, rare errors that make it worth studying closely. The year 1979 was a time of change and growth in the United States, and the penny reflected that era's industrial and cultural backdrop. Pennies produced during this time were composed primarily of copper, with a small zinc core introduced earlier in the decade to conserve metal. Specifically, the 1979 D penny is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving it that classic reddish-brown appearance that coin enthusiasts immediately recognize. While millions were produced, the quality of each coin varied slightly depending on minting conditions, making the discovery of pristine, uncirculated examples particularly exciting for collectors. What sets the 1979 D Lincoln penny apart isn't just the metal or the date. The design is a continuation of the familiar imagery created by Victor David Brenner, featuring Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, which had been in use since 1959. But eagle-eyed collectors know that small differences, like doubled dies, off-center strikes, or die cracks, can transform a coin from common to highly sought after. One of the most talked about quirks among the 1979 D pennies is the subtle doubling seen on some examples, especially around the word liberty and the date itself. These doubled die errors are rare, and even a minor example can attract significant attention in the coin collecting community. Despite its high mintage, over 1.6 billion coins produced in Denver alone, certain 1979 D. Lincoln pennies are considered valuable, largely due to their condition and rarity of specific errors. A coin in circulated condition might only be worth a few cents above face value, but a high-grade, uncirculated coin can fetch anywhere from a few dollars to hundreds, depending on its state and whether it carries a collectible error. For example, uncirculated M. Sminnis 65 or higher grades are particularly sought after, and coins with clear doubled dies have been known to sell at specialized auctions for several $100s or more. These examples demonstrate that even a penny from a seemingly ordinary year can hold surprising potential for collectors. Identifying a genuine 1979 D. Lincoln penny is relatively straightforward, but it requires attention to detail. The first step is to examine the mint mark. The D should be crisp, clear, and properly aligned above the date. Any deviation could indicate a misprint or, in rare cases, a counterfeit. Next, collectors often inspect the coin's surface for wear, discoloration, or unusual marks. High-grade coins will have sharp details on Lincoln's profile, the lines of his coat, and the columns of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. When looking for doubled die errors, subtle magnification can reveal doubled lines in the lettering or date. Authentication services and professional grading can provide further assurance, especially for coins that appear unusually valuable. There are several fun and surprising facts about the 1979 D. Lincoln penny that make it more than just a collectible. For one, this coin was produced during a time when copper prices were beginning to rise, which influenced the mint's careful balance of metal composition. Additionally, it was part of the final years before the U.S. Mint experimented with more pronounced cost-saving measures in the 1980s, including further reduction of copper content. Collectors also enjoy tracing how this coin circulated in everyday life, how it might have passed through countless hands, traveled across cities, and even survived being kept in jars, wallets, and cash registers, only to resurface decades later in pristine condition. Collectors love the 1979 D. Lincoln penny today not only for its potential value, but also for the sense of history it carries. It represents a snapshot of late 20th century America, the industrial processes of the time, and the ongoing story of Lincoln pennies that has spanned more than a century. The appeal is both tangible and emotional. Holding a well-preserved 1979 D penny is like holding a small piece of the past, a reminder of the continuity of American currency, and a connection to generations of people who used these coins in daily life. For numismatists, it is the thrill of discovery, the careful study of details, and the satisfaction of adding a rare or error coin to a collection that makes the 1979 D penny so beloved. Beyond its monetary value, this coin sparks curiosity. How did it survive decades of circulation without damage? What errors or unique features might it conceal? Could a simple penny sitting in a drawer today be worth hundreds tomorrow if it turns out to be one of the rarer varieties? This curiosity drives collectors to examine even the most ordinary coins with care, fostering a deeper appreciation for history, craftsmanship, and the sometimes overlooked stories behind everyday objects. In auctions and collector circles, the 1979 D. Lincoln penny continues to attract attention. Coins in high grades or with notable errors have been sold for prices far exceeding what many people would expect for a coin that was once just everyday money. The thrill of spotting a rare doubled die or an uncirculated gem adds excitement and anticipation to what might otherwise seem mundane. Even among casual collectors, this coin serves as a reminder that value often lies hidden in the details, waiting to be discovered by those willing to look closely. Ultimately, The 1979 D. Lincoln penny is a fascinating blend of history, artistry, and subtle rarity. It is a coin that carries both a story and potential, a reminder that even the smallest objects can hold extraordinary significance. For those who study it, collect it, and treasure it, the 1979 D penny is far more than copper and zinc. It is a connection to the past, a challenge to the curious, and a small piece of American history that continues to inspire fascination. So next time you reach for a seemingly ordinary penny, consider this. Somewhere among the billions minted in Denver in 1979, there might be a coin that could tell a story, spark excitement, and perhaps even change the way you see everyday money. The 1979 D. Lincoln penny is waiting quietly in jars, drawers, and collections, ready to reward the observant eye with history, value, and a touch of numismatic magic. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that millions of people pass by every day. Yet only a few know its hidden story, its subtle secrets, and the surprising value it might carry. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny is one of those coins. At first glance, it might seem ordinary, just a copper-colored disc featuring Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. But for collectors and coin enthusiasts, this little penny has a story that's worth exploring. Today, we're diving deep into the history, unique features, and rare qualities that make the 1992 D. Lincoln penny a fascinating piece of American numismatic history. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny was minted in Denver, which is what the D on the coin stands for. It's part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, which has been in continuous production since 1909. Abraham Lincoln's portrait has graced the penny for more than a century, symbolizing not just the 16th president, but also a coin that reflects both history and everyday American life. While billions of Lincoln pennies were made in 1992, certain versions of this coin have subtle characteristics that set them apart, making them particularly interesting to collectors. The year 1992 itself was a relatively quiet year in the world of coinage, yet it carried some subtle significance. The United States Mint continued producing Lincoln pennies primarily composed of a copper-plated zinc composition, a change that had been fully implemented in 1982. Before that, pennies were mostly made of nearly pure copper. The shift to zinc with a thin copper coating was partly due to rising metal costs, and by 1992, this composition was standard. However, coins from this era, especially those with mint marks like the Denver D, sometimes show variations or minor errors that can make them more valuable than face value. One of the most noticeable features of the 1992 D penny is its design. The obverse, or front, showcases Abraham Lincoln's right-facing portrait, created by Victor David Brenner, a design that has endured for over a century. The date 1992 is stamped to the right of Lincoln, while the D mint mark sits just below the date, signifying Denver. The word liberty appears to the left, and the national motto "In God We Trust" arches along the top. On the reverse, the coin displays the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparro, which had been a standard design since 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday. These familiar features make it easy to recognize at a glance, but for collectors, it's the subtle differences that matter most. Some 1992 D pennies have unique traits that make them rare or valuable. One of the most well-known varieties is the double die obverse. A double die occurs during the minting process when the coin's die strikes the blank more than once, slightly misaligned. This creates a subtle doubling effect on the lettering or numbers, most commonly visible on the date or the words liberty and "In God We Trust." Detecting a double die can require magnification, but for collectors, spotting one of these pennies is like finding a hidden treasure. Another variation involves minor errors in the minting process, such as weak strikes or small die cracks. While these may seem insignificant to the casual observer, they can make a coin highly sought after in the numismatic community. So why is the 1992 D. Lincoln penny particularly interesting to collectors? While the majority of these coins are common and worth just a few cents, certain error coins or rare variations can command much higher prices. Coins that are in pristine, uncirculated condition can also attract premium attention. This is because condition matters tremendously in coin collecting. A 1992 D penny with no scratches, no wear, and a sharp, crisp strike can be worth more than its face value simply because it has been preserved perfectly, almost like a small piece of history frozen in time. To give some real-world examples, 1992 D pennies with double die errors have been sold at auctions for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the severity of the doubling and the coin's condition. Even without major errors, uncirculated coins from this year in mint state can fetch prices ranging from a few dollars up to $20 or $30, simply because collectors value their rarity and flawless condition. It's a reminder that sometimes the smallest items can hold the largest surprises, especially when it comes to coins. Identifying a genuine 1992 D penny is easier than many think, but it requires careful observation. First, check the mint mark. The D should be clear, well-formed, and positioned just below the date. Second, examine the coin for signs of doubling on the obverse. Using a magnifying glass, look closely at the numbers in the date and the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust. Any slight doubling is an indicator of a double die, a highly collectible feature. Third, inspect the overall quality and metal composition. A real penny will have a uniform copper-colored coating over a zinc core. Any inconsistencies in weight, color, or detail could indicate a reproduction or a counterfeit. By carefully studying these details, collectors can separate ordinary coins from those that hold special value. Beyond the technical details, the 1992 D. Lincoln penny has a few fun facts that make it even more intriguing. For instance, it is part of a long tradition of Lincoln pennies that have been in circulation for over 100 years, making it a small but enduring symbol of American history. Many people don't realize that millions of these pennies were struck, yet a very small percentage have survived in uncirculated or error condition. Another interesting detail is that, unlike some earlier pennies, the 1992 D is less prone to corrosion or damage, thanks to its copper-plated zinc composition. This durability means that pristine coins from this era are more likely to be found intact, increasing their appeal to collectors. Collectors today love the 1992 D. Lincoln penny for several reasons. Its combination of historical significance, design continuity, and potential rare variations make it a desirable addition to any collection. Even casual collectors who grew up with Lincoln pennies in their pockets find themselves drawn to these coins when they realize the hidden value that can lie in a single mint mark or a minor minting error. It's a reminder that numismatics isn't just about money. It's about history, observation, and the thrill of discovery. Holding a coin like this connects you to a larger story, one that spans decades and touches countless hands. And perhaps the most fascinating part is that even a coin that seems ordinary at first glance can spark curiosity and excitement. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny shows us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's hidden in a tiny letter, a subtle doubling of a number, or a perfect uncirculated surface. For anyone who enjoys the thrill of finding something rare in the everyday, this penny is a perfect example. It's a small, unassuming piece of copper and zinc, yet it carries a story, a potential treasure, and a connection to American history that is truly timeless. So next time you come across a 1992 D penny, take a closer look. Examine the mint mark, check for double die features, and appreciate its design and history. You might just discover that this common coin is far more extraordinary than it seems. After all, in the world of coins, sometimes the smallest details make the biggest difference, and a single penny can hold a lifetime of stories waiting to be uncovered. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny reminds us that history is all around us, often in the palms of our hands. It's a coin that has quietly passed through millions of lives, yet it holds secrets that only careful observation can reveal. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just someone who loves the idea of hidden value, this coin offers a small but powerful connection to the past, a chance to find something extraordinary in the ordinary, and a reminder that even the smallest objects can spark curiosity, excitement, and wonder. Every time a coin like this appears in your hand, it's more than just metal and design. It's history, it's craftsmanship, and for those who know where to look, it's also a doorway to discovery and maybe even a bit of fortune. The 1992 D. Lincoln penny may be small, but its story is large, and for those willing to look closely, the surprises it holds are endless. Imagine holding a single coin in your hand, one that looks like the pennies you've passed by in your pocket or your change jar 100 times before. But this isn't just any penny. This is a 1995 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that quietly hides stories of history, craftsmanship, and in some rare cases, surprising value that could make collectors' hearts race. What if I told you that this humble piece of copper could be more than just loose change, and might even be worth hundreds or potentially thousands, if you know exactly what to look for? The 1995 D. Lincoln penny is part of a long line of coins that have carried Abraham Lincoln's image across the United States since 1909. Known officially as the Lincoln cent, it was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Over the years, the design evolved slightly, but the core idea remained the same: to honor one of America's most iconic presidents. By 1995, this coin had been in production for over 85 years, striking millions of pennies at various mints, including Denver, where the D mint mark signifies it was made. While millions were produced, a few have subtle quirks that make them stand out to collectors today. The 1995 D penny is composed primarily of copper-plated zinc, a change that began in 1982. Before that, pennies were mostly copper. This switch in materials was part of an effort by the U.S. Mint to reduce production costs while maintaining the familiar appearance of the Lincoln cent. The front, or obverse, features Abraham Lincoln's profile, sculpted in careful detail, and the back shows the Lincoln Memorial, which had been standard since 1959. The design is simple, yet iconic, and it carries with it the weight of American history. But for coin collectors, it's often the small, nearly invisible details that can turn a common penny into something extraordinary. One of the reasons the 1995 D. Lincoln penny attracts attention is the occurrence of minting errors. While most coins are flawless, some experienced slight variations during production. This could be a doubled die, a misplaced mint mark, or an off-center strike. Any of these errors can significantly increase a coin's value. For instance, a 1995 D penny with a noticeable doubled die on the obverse could fetch much higher prices than a standard penny, sometimes hundreds of dollars, depending on its condition and rarity. The challenge, of course, is identifying these differences because they are often subtle, and the untrained eye might miss them entirely. The rarity of certain 1995 D pennies comes not from the total number minted — they were produced in the millions — but from these unique errors and the coin's condition over time. Coins that were never circulated, showing no wear or scratches, are considered mint state and are highly sought after. Even within this group, those with unusual striking errors become especially prized. Collectors prize perfection, and a single flaw or anomaly can dramatically alter the story and value of a coin. To put this into perspective, there are documented sales of 1995 D. Lincoln pennies in exceptional condition or with rare errors that have achieved impressive prices at auctions. A standard circulated 1995 D penny may only be worth its face value, or a small premium if it is uncirculated. However, Coins with confirmed double dies or other recognized mint errors have sold in the range of several $100s. Some examples, when certified by professional grading services, have even reached over $1,000 for the rarest anomalies. These numbers highlight the incredible potential hidden in what might seem like an ordinary coin. Identifying a genuine 1995 D Lincoln penny involves a few careful steps. First, the mint mark must be inspected. The small D under the year tells you it was struck in Denver. Look closely at the detail of Lincoln's profile. The hair, jawline, and coat should be crisp. The reverse, showing the Lincoln Memorial, should have clear lines and no distortion. If you're examining a coin for errors, magnification is often necessary. Small double dies or misaligned strikes are impossible to see with the naked eye. And while fakes are rare for modern pennies, it is always wise to consult professional grading services if you suspect you have a valuable variant. They can verify authenticity and assign a grade that collectors trust worldwide. Beyond value, there are some fun and surprising details about the 1995 D Lincoln penny that make it a fascinating piece of American numismatic history. For instance, the 1995 minting year was part of a decade that saw subtle changes in minting technology, producing coins with sharper detail than previous decades. Collectors also enjoy comparing these pennies to earlier Lincoln cents, noting how designs have evolved, from the tiny differences in Lincoln's hair to the adjustments in the memorial's columns. Each penny tells a story of the mint's dedication, the materials used, and the subtle variations that make each one unique. Collectors today cherish the 1995 D Lincoln penny for a variety of reasons. Some are drawn to the possibility of discovering a hidden error. Others enjoy assembling a complete set of Lincoln cents from Denver, Philadelphia, and San Francisco mints across the decades. The coin is accessible enough for beginners to start collecting, but offers depth and complexity for experienced numismatists who are hunting for rare varieties. There is also a nostalgic factor. Many collectors remember these pennies from childhood, adding an emotional connection to the thrill of discovery. As you think about the 1995 D Lincoln penny, consider this. What looks like a simple piece of copper could be a bridge to the past, a token of American history, and in rare cases, a surprising treasure. The next time you come across a penny, examine it closely. You never know if it might be more than just loose change. Perhaps it's a coin with a tiny anomaly that could make it stand out in the eyes of collectors, or maybe it's a flawless specimen preserved in uncirculated perfection. Either way, the 1995 D Lincoln penny reminds us that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary stories, waiting to be discovered. So the question remains, could the penny in your pocket be hiding something special? Could a casual glance reveal a hidden treasure, a coin that tells a story, or one that even today might fetch a collector's admiration? The answer may be closer than you think, and it's just a matter of looking closely enough to see the remarkable history tucked into the smallest details.